This is not the kind of place where you'd expect life to thrive.
It's cruel, it's unsafe, it's risky, and it really must stop.
An isolated, wind-swept island near Antarctica. No people, just seabirds, sea lions, penguins, and thousands of sheep. But these aren't ordinary sheep.
This report contains images that some viewers might find upsetting.
They're giants, nearly collapsing under the weight of their wool. Abandoned by humans, doomed to die. Yet against all odds, they survived.
A complaint came into the Department of Agriculture, and that's when they started to investigate this.
Then something even stranger happened. They began to change, to evolve, to become something entirely new. This isn't just a survival story, it's the quiet beginning of a transformation, one that could have led to a brand new species. Let's find out. The accidental colonizers of Campbell Island. At first glance, Campbell Island seemed like the last place anyone would think to raise sheep. Located far south of New Zealand, just shy of Antarctica's reach, it's a cold, wind-battered, and largely uninhabited place. When it was discovered in 1810 by an Australian captain on a sealing expedition, it held no real value beyond temporary hunting grounds. It was named without much imagination, after the Campbell brothers, the ship's owners in Sydney. For decades, it served passing sealers and whalers. Then, in 1896, everything changed. Campbell Island was added to New Zealand's leasehold pasture system, which allowed individuals to rent state-owned land for farming and livestock. Mr. Gordon from Gisborne saw an opportunity. He shipped 400 sheep and building materials to the island, hoping to turn it into a functioning sheep station. But the harsh conditions and high costs quickly wore him down. By 1900, Gordon gave up, and a man named Captain Tucker took over. He doubled down on the plan, importing several large shipments of sheep, possibly thousands, most of them merinos or merino crosses. At first, it worked. The sheep thrived on the island's unique vegetation, especially the massive-leafed mega-herbs found only in New Zealand's sub-Antarctic. With no predators and plenty of food, the population ballooned. By 1913, nearly 8,000 sheep were roaming the island. It seemed like success had finally taken root in this remote, wind-swept place. But no one considered what would happen if the humans walked away and left the sheep behind. Abandonment and the beginning of wild survival. By 1931, the dream of turning Campbell Island into a thriving sheep station had collapsed. The lush plants that once fed thousands of sheep were nearly gone. Profits had vanished. The people followed. Workers waited 2 years for a boat to return. When it finally came, they left with piles of wool, worth less than the cost of transport. They were never paid. And the sheep? Left behind. Nearly 4,000 of them. These weren't wild animals. They were domestic sheep, bred for wool production, not survival. Every year they needed shearing, or the wool would keep growing, heavy, blinding, and suffocating. Without humans, that simple necessity vanished. By all logic, these sheep were doomed. But Campbell Island was full of surprises. While many of the sheep likely died from overgrown wool, starvation, or sheer vulnerability, some managed to adapt, not immediately, but over time. The ones with slightly lighter coats, tougher instincts, or stronger bodies lived just long enough to reproduce. And so began an unexpected chapter. No humans to guide them, no fences, no shears, just wind, cliffs, and whatever food remained. Natural selection stepped in where human care had failed. Slowly, the herd that once depended entirely on people began shifting toward something entirely new: wild survival. Evolution in real time. Between 1931 and 1958, something remarkable happened on Campbell Island. With no human interference, the sheep population, once in decline, began to rise again. But these weren't the same sheep that had been left behind. They were leaner, tougher, and more independent. Evolution had taken the wheel. Only the sheep that could survive the brutal conditions made it through the early years. Those with lighter wool, stronger limbs, and better instincts reproduced. Others, weighed down by their coats, or too dependent on human feeding patterns, simply didn't last. Over generations, the flock transformed. Their bodies changed. Legs grew longer, helping them navigate the rough terrain. Their jaws adapted to ripping through tough vegetation. They even developed behavioral changes, eating non-stop from dawn till night, and instinctively turning their backs to the relentless wind. In essence, the sheep were rewilding themselves. Nature was shaping them into something new. Without predators to threaten them or shepherds to shear them, the survivors carried forward only the traits that worked. They didn't just adapt, they evolved. And in doing so, they offered scientists a rare, living example of evolution unfolding in isolation, right before human eyes. Now, first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. A new breed is born. By the time people returned to Campbell Island in the mid-1970s, the sheep were no longer just survivors. They were something else entirely. From a distance, they still looked like ordinary sheep, but a closer look revealed a population shaped by decades of isolation. Their bodies had changed, their behavior had shifted, even their instincts were different. These sheep stood taller, with longer legs and higher-held heads. Their wool had grown coarser and patchier, with parts of their backs worn bare by the elements. Many had developed a tendency to shed, a trait more common in wild sheep than domesticated breeds. Their jaws were stronger but slightly warped, evidence of years spent yanking at tough subantarctic plants. Even feeding became awkward when given soft grass in feeders. They didn't know what to do with it. And the lambs? They could walk within minutes of birth. Mothers often gave birth standing up, something rarely seen in farm sheep. These traits weren't random. They were survival tools, sharpened over time. In effect, Campbell Island's sheep had become a new breed, feral, self-reliant, and uniquely tuned to one of the harshest places on Earth. They weren't just sheep anymore. The end of the wild flock. Despite their incredible transformation, the wild sheep of Campbell Island were running out of time. In 1937, the island was designated for conservation. By 1954, it was declared a wildlife reserve, and a court order demanded the removal of all sheep. But by then, the animals had already evolved into a self-sustaining population, living freely for over 2 decades. When scientists returned in 1958, they counted fewer than 1,000. Yet over time, their numbers recovered again. In 1970, a fence was built across the island. Sheep on the northern side, around 1,300, were culled. But to the south, another 2,500 had survived, and the population kept growing. Finally, in the 1980s, the last culling was carried out. About 3,000 sheep were destroyed, not out of cruelty, but to protect the island's fragile ecosystem. Their presence had begun to damage native plants and slow the recovery of the landscape. Still, not all was lost. In 1975 to 1976, scientists managed to rescue 58 sheep. From them, 10 were selected to start a captive breeding program in mainland New Zealand. It was a desperate effort to preserve a remarkable genetic story, a living trace of what evolution had done alone in the wild. Legacy, loss, and what could have been. The rescued sheep were taken to New Zealand.
There's only one thing on the menu for most New Zealand sheep, and that's good old-fashioned ryegrass,
where they became the foundation of a protected, purebred herd. For years, their descendants lived quietly, far from the harsh winds of Campbell Island. But their legacy remained rare and fragile. These animals weren't just survivors. They carried the genetic imprint of one of evolution's rarest experiments. And yet, even in safety, danger found them. In 2017, tragedy struck. 5 of the remaining rare sheep were stolen and killed. The loss was devastating. Some of the ewes were pregnant, just weeks from giving birth. Their meat wasn't valuable, nor was it even safe to eat. but someone went through great effort to slaughter them, an act as senseless as it was damaging. The population dropped to around 30 individuals. These sheep, once poised to become an entirely new species had they stayed on the island, now walk a thinner line between survival and extinction. Their evolution was cut short, but what they achieved, going from helpless farm animals to self-sufficient island dwellers, is a testament to nature's quiet power. If they'd been left alone for a few thousand more years, who knows what kind of creature they might have become? A mirror of evolution. The story of Campbell Island's sheep mirrors something deeper: how life bends, adapts, and endures when stripped of all support. Left in isolation, in a landscape that offered no kindness, these animals reconnected with instincts long bred out of them. It's rare to witness such clear, fast-paced natural selection without human interference. Yet on this remote patch of land, that's exactly what happened. Similar stories have played out before. Kangaroo Island, off the coast of Australia, became home to a group of kangaroos thousands of years ago, separated by rising seas. With no predators and minimal human presence, they evolved into a stockier, darker, and gentler subspecies, perfectly suited to their unique home. Just like the sheep, they had time. Time to adapt, change, and become something new. What happened on Campbell Island was a rare glimpse into evolution unfolding in real time. Not in theory or fossils, but in wool and bone, in changed behavior and hardened bodies. The sheep didn't just survive, they became something else. And though most are gone, their story remains a powerful reminder. Life doesn't just endure the impossible. It quietly rewrites itself to fit the world it's given. In the end, Campbell Island didn't just shelter a forgotten herd, it became a living laboratory of evolution. The sheep that once relied on humans rewrote their instincts to survive, adapt, and even thrive. Most of them are gone now, but their story endures, a quiet reminder of nature's resilience when left to its own devices. It's strange to think how close we came to witnessing the birth of a new species. Sometimes, the most extraordinary tales come from the most unlikely creatures. And maybe, just maybe, we'll learn to pay closer attention next time. Until then, stay curious. See you soon.